There's a new report out that exposes how Democratic politicians are writing op-eds against Medicare for all while being advised by health insurance lobbyists. So now it's not just Democrats that are writing these anti-Medicare for all op-eds. There's also some Republicans, but that's not a surprise when it comes to Republicans. But Democrats, okay. So now the article is actually in GQ, which again, interesting, but it's a great article. And it first starts out by noting how incredibly popular single payer is among the voters. Quote, poll numbers fluctuate depending on how the question is asked, which is true, but findings consistently show large majority support for a single payer program like Medicare for all. One 2018 poll, they pointed out, showed support was as high as an astonishing 70%. Now, they also rightly point out, and this is not great for the Medicare for all movement, but it's factual information. They point out that as the Democratic Party has gone further on, the numbers have slipped, and now only a slight majority, 51% of Americans, support Medicare for all. So now that is not an accident, as the report points out. See, what they've been doing, and the reason these numbers have gone down, is that you've had a protracted effort by health insurance companies and establishment politicians to erode support for single payer, for Medicare for all, by putting out misinformation. And so there's a lot of this. Now, one example, Democratic strategists and insiders have told the New York Times that they think strong social programs like universal health care will hurt the party in the long run. And so they have come up with talking points. For example, Medicare for all will, it'll raise your taxes really high. And so you're going to get taxed out of existence. Well, in reality, yes, there will be a small increase, as Bernie Sanders puts it. But when you put it into perspective to how much the average family pays when it comes to health insurance premiums, co-pays, and deductibles, the average family actually saves a lot of money. Saves around $4,000 on average. And of course, the numbers will vary, right? And so it also is progressive. So the more you make, the more you will end up paying into Medicare. And this is one way to pay for it, is through the payroll tax, which would, yes, increase slightly for the average family. You will save a lot of money in the long run. And so there's that. Again, the Republican talking point, or the centrist Democratic talking point, is that it's too expensive and that you will never be able to afford it. In reality, the system that we have right now actually costs more than instituting a Medicare for all single payer system. And so there's that lie that it's going to be an extra $32 trillion on top of what we already pay. Well, our system costs about $34 trillion right now, and within 10 years is expected to go up to nearly $50 trillion. So, and that's about $5 trillion a year, as opposed to 3.2 a year. And so, look, that's math. You can't really get away from that. Okay, so Medicare for all, it saves a lot of money for the average family, but what it does, what it doesn't do is generate a lot of profits for certain industries. And so that's who is fighting the most against that, as well as the people, of course, the industry pays off, which is a lot of your establishment politicians. And so, look, healthcare is one of the top issues in the country, going back to the argument that, and this is the reason that they're justifying fighting against Medicare for all. Oh, it's going to hurt the party. Well, where's your evidence? No, it'll help the party. Again, healthcare, the top issue in the country. And when it comes to Medicare, people love Medicare. Republicans love Medicare. It turns out people love having healthcare. And I know one of the arguments is, but look, I like my health insurer. I get health insurance through work. And I'm pretty happy with it. And it's a good plan, and we fought for it. Why should we change? Well, okay, you may have good healthcare now. That doesn't mean that your employer either won't change, or in the terrible event that your company goes out of business, well, you won't have healthcare then, or you get fired, or anything could happen to change that healthcare. So it's kind of an asinine, ridiculous argument to think that, oh, no, everything's good now, so it's going to stay the same, when in reality, that's definitely not the trend. But with Medicare for All, you do have that stability because the government will continue to provide that means of getting health insurance and being able to go to the doctor. And so, again, these are the ridiculous arguments, choice, and all that stuff that is being floated by Democratic politicians as well as Republicans in an effort to stall single payer. And so here's the thing. A lot of people, when they're asked, they think, yes, we do pay too much for healthcare as it is. Well, you're right. We do. We pay for a system that costs too much and does not actually deliver at all. I mean, look at our closest neighbor in Canada. They spend half of what we do per capita on healthcare. The UK, similar numbers. In fact, every other industrialized country that has a single payer system or a non-profit healthcare system actually spends less on healthcare than we do, and yet somehow finds a way to be able to cover every single citizen. Again, even prescription drugs in those countries, which are manufactured here, by the way, are a lot cheaper in those other countries. And yet we pay more for both healthcare and prescription drugs in this country. So, look, the problem here is that you have Republicans and Democrats that have decided to join together to destroy the push for single payer. Just last month, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told Bloomberg that, quote, I'm not a big fan of Medicare for all. That's Nancy Pelosi. That's a House Democrat. Well, I thought you had these Medicare for all posters in your basement, Nancy. I thought you were a big proponent of Medicare for all in the day. Well, I guess you buried those posters down there with your conscience after getting all that health insurance money. You got paid. But look, it's not just national politicians, as this points out. Again, Democratic and Republican legislators in the states have been publishing these op-eds that either suggest very mild adjustments to the ACA or just straight up going after single payer. Now, these op-eds, we find out, are literally approved by the donors before they get out the door. Now, the Washington Post had obtained private emails of multiple lawmakers showing that they ran their op-eds by healthcare industry lobbyists before publishing them. So they write an op-ed because they already know what they're going to say. They're already paid by the health insurance industry. And then they give it to the lobbyists and say, does everything look good? Great. Send it. Montana Representative Kathy Kelker and State Senator Jen Gross are an example of this. Both Democrats, by the way. They included language from a man named John McDonald. Now, John McDonald is a lobbyist who reached out on behalf of Partnership for America's Healthcare Future. You're going to be hearing a lot about that organization. They're an industry group that is specifically created to fight against single payer. They're funded by hospitals, private insurers, drug companies, and other private firms that stand to lose out if Medicare for all is enacted. Among other edits, McDonald apparently deleted a table from one of the op-eds showing that Americans spend more per capita on healthcare than France, Germany, Norway, and Switzerland. Again, these aforementioned countries that have at least some form of either non-profit private healthcare, private health insurers, or government-sponsored health insurance. Now, it's kind of funny why you would delete something like that. Why? It's because the entire point of these lobbyists is to make sure that Americans don't actually know that people in these other countries pay less and get more. And that here in America, the situation is reversed. We pay more and get far, far less. Now, Kelker and Gross both told the Washington Post that they were not aware that McDonald was a lobbyist. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, he just he wanted to reach out and help us slam Medicare for all. I didn't know he was a lobbyist. Right. Uh, and after they've received backlash from their constituents, this is when they went to the Post and talked about it because their constituents were pretty angry that they were putting out these op-eds. Now, this is Montana, by the way. These are Montana Democrats, and their constituents are like, what are you doing attacking Medicare for all? We have to have Medicare for all. And so, hey, look, if people want it in Montana, people want it likely everywhere in the United States because it's good policy. All right, more. After Kelker's op-ed ran, and this is why she is completely disingenuous. She emailed McDonald writing, quote, "At church, I received many favorable comments from her op-ed, mostly from Republicans." Now, remember, these two are Democrats. Now, it is super telling when you have a Democrat over here gushing over praise of an article that some of her constituents did not like, push back on. And this article, by the way, continues to show for a system where some of her constituents will die because they can't afford health care. Remember, 45,000 people a year annually die because they don't have access to health care. They don't have insurance. And she is continuing to protect that system by writing these op-eds, but absolutely loves the attention and the positive comments she gets from Republicans as a Democrat. Well, so does that mean Republicans are going to vote for you? No, of course not. So who cares if Republicans like it? They're never going to vote for you. They're never going to support you. And again, a lot of these Republicans don't care if other people have health care. They just don't. All right, so now there's more. An aide to Ohio State Senator Steve Huffman, a Republican, also confirmed that Huffman's recent op-ed attacking Medicare for All was written with help from Ohio-based lobbyist Kathleen DeLond. Okay. Now, DeLond would neither confirm nor deny to the Post that she worked for Partnership for America's Healthcare Future. However, her emails revealed that she, yes, was using the group's acronym in her subject line, meaning, yes, she was working with that group. Now, the partnership, by the way, linked to these op-eds and emails to reporters, citing them as, quote, evidence that voices throughout the nation oppose Medicare for all. In reality, the only voices here are the lobbyists and the corrupt politicians that are paid by them to oppose Medicare for all. Real people, when you actually give them the right facts about this, well, they tend to support single payer. And they think it's a no-brainer. Of course we need Medicare for all. All right. Last month, Politico also detailed the rise of the partnership from a coalition of groups representing, and this is who these people are, representing the insurance and pharmaceutical industries to a multi-million-dollar juggernaut aiming to oppose any major expansion of government-financed healthcare in D.C. and across the country. The organization promotes the talking points that single-payer healthcare system would empower bureaucrats to enforce Americans into a one-size-fits-all plan, taking away choice and control. And you hear these exact arguments from Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden as well, and the establishment candidates that are against Medicare for all. In reality, you have more choice under Medicare for all. For example, you have no networks. Anybody who's dealt with health insurance and has gotten surprise billing from hospitals that love to do surprise billing, where you have to see somebody, you see a doctor, and you find out later that he's not in your network, so your insurance won't cover it. So all that personal cost goes onto you. That's not freedom. Freedom is not having to deal with networks. Freedom is, look, being able to keep your doctor. And I know, right? PolitiFacts lie of the year. Oh, if you can keep your doctor, like if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Well, under Medicare for All, you can. Because guess what? The government pays for your insurance. The government is the payer. They literally do nothing else. This is not a takeover of healthcare. This is substituting a health insurance company that is for profit with the government to handle who gets paid. It not only would streamline the process, it would make it way more efficient and, yes, reduce the overhead. Again, you don't have to deal with 4 different insurance companies trying to figure out which plan you have, what is covered under these plans, whether or not you're in network or out of network, or have a deductible to pay first before you can even see the doctor, before you can even get care or get your insurance to kick in. None of that stuff. Medicare for All, you come in, you see the doctor, you present your card, and that's it. You're done. Everything else is taken care of. You don't have to deal with all this other crap. And so you tell me what sounds like more freedom, what sounds like a better choice. And I think if given the choice, Americans will definitely prefer Medicare for All, so long as they know the facts. All right. And so, look, health insurance companies, they hate this. They want to decide what they cover based on profit motive. How much money we're going to make. That's the only concern about in their heads. And so that's why these are disingenuous talking points. And that's why they are trying so hard to crush Medicare for All, because they will lose out. And so here you have industry lobbyists that are literally going in and proofreading op-eds, editing them, taking things out, putting things in on behalf of this giant lobbyist group. And they're working with Democratic Party politicians and Republicans to basically prevent a transition that will literally save Americans both lives and money. And I talk about lives first because that, to me, that is the most important thing. We're saving lives here with Medicare for All, and that's what would happen. But look, it's really disgusting how depraved the system is and how it is trying to protect itself through lies, disinformation, disingenuous talking points made by politicians, for example, like Pete Buttigieg. He's one of those people that are making these disingenuous talking points. And all these other politicians, Joe Biden, and anyone else who goes after Medicare for All. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.